Hey, video boys here. Good, excellent.
We're under 80 seconds.
Oh, excellent. That's even better. You know, the really cool part about being wireless mic'd is when you mutter to yourself something insulting about the person over there, it gets blasted to the entire room. Oh, God, what an ugly motherfucker. Oh, Jesus Christ. What happened? Do we want to ask him what happened? Anyway, all right, so we're going to do the thing with that. We got death things there. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you'll all get a fine amount of time to speak.
What are we talking about?
Fantastic. What are we talking about? Well, today we're talking about what the National Vegetarian Council can do for you. 10 seconds, 5 seconds. You think so? Okay. So I guess is this it? Are these thunderous crowds? Okay, thunderous. Can I get thunder, please? Thunder. Yeah, the video can't show this, but what we're going to do is we're going to Photoshop in, heads, shadowed heads underneath all of this. But I do appreciate all of you coming here, especially during dinner time, which is not an easy time to come here. All right, well, welcome to the NOTACON Hacker Media panel. What this is, and these guys all have their ears pricked wondering what the hell this is, we're just going to go over a quick review of some of the aspects of running a technically oriented media program. All these gentlemen share the same hobby, skill, or profession, which is that they enjoy coming on the air via podcast, via broadcasting, or whatever other method they can find to talk about technical issues. My name is Jason Scott. I'm the moderator. I promise I won't dominate. Let's get an introduction from each person. Your name?
Drew.
Yeah, I'm Pony Boy.
Pony Boy.
Lowtek Mystik.
Lowtek.
Zach Campbell.
Zach Campbell.
Slick Zero.
Slip Zero.
Droops.
Droops. We also call him Nancy Boy, but he prefers Droops. So there you go. All right. So, as I understand it, most of you are on shows. Some of you might primarily be guests. So, in an opportunity to just quickly promote yourselves, if you're on a show, what's your show?
Dial-a-dork.
Dial-a-dork.
I'm on Belcore Radio.
Belcore Radio.
Ninja Night School.
Ninja Night School.
The Packet Sniffers.
Packet Sniffers.
BaseNet Radio.
BaseNet Radio.
Twat Radio.
Twat Radio. So, I guess the first question, of course, is, and any of you can answer this, would be, where did you first get the bug to decide to do a show? Just take the mic, hit the guy who tries to take it from you, and go ahead.
Well, actually, I started not even online. We were just kind of surfing channels one day and found out that we had a cable access station. And I thought, man, this really sucks. We could do something kind of tech TV on here. And we were just kind of tossing around names and the screensavers are funny. Haha. Oh, well, we could be the Packet Sniffers. And we just started editing up shows, and then it was about 3 or 4 months after that, then we decided, well, we could put it online too, and then that's when we stumbled into this whole mess. And that's been about it from there.
I probably speaking for most of the other people here too. I do an internet radio podcast, whatever the hell you want to call it. And I was really just inspired by, mainly by a show called Radio Freak America, which was kind of more or less the inspiration for 90% of hacker radio shows that you hear now. And I think that probably most of these people are probably in the same boat as me, but...
Yeah. Yes, there's a show called Radio Freak America, which broadcast from, what was it? It was 2002?
No, they went into 2000. Yeah, 2002 to 2004, I think.
Yeah, 2002 to 2004, mostly run by a gentleman named Dual Parallel, who lives somewhere, which you can never figure out unless you actually listen to the show, and then you know exactly where he lives.
Yeah.
Who was blessed with a beautiful voice and an ability to be interested and astounded at all manner of technical knowledge and act like he was learning just along with you. And he was, in fact, an extremely inspiring person. I had the pleasure of being on his show a few times myself. So, when you put together a show, are there any subjects that you particularly enjoy speaking about that you think your particular brand of show really helps people either learn about or know?
Well, I know my show is basically centered, generally, not all the time, but I try to center it around phone phreaking and telephony, because there's really not a big a large amount of shows on that nature that exist still. But
Ninja Night School is mainly focused around just obscure knowledge. As hackers in general, we all are. This whole thing to the average person is very obscure. You go to, tell any kind of like hex or anything like that, the average person, you just lost them. So also with obscure knowledge, you're not. Okay, we're not just limited to just technical obscure data. There's all kinds of just obscure and interesting things that surround us in our world. So I wanted to give back to the community somehow, and not necessarily being an extremely elite or technical person. I chose to do so by covering other obscure topics that I could bring that I think people in this community would also enjoy knowing about.
Well, just like Lowtek popped out, it's kind of important, especially when you're doing this, not to just oversaturate it with technical content. There's just a lot more things that you can pop the top to and learn what's under the covers. And what I like to do is preserve dying and old technology. If you've watched the Packet Sniffers, you know that I cover Commodore 64 hardware quite a bit. It's kind of a dying thing. The 8-bit generation is kind of fading fast, but there's still a dedicated scene that's still pumping out a lot of stuff new. So it's just one of those obscure, realms that a lot of people aren't too familiar with, or, well, that's about it.
Well, let's see. Right now, the show BaseNet does primarily just tech news, but we like to comment on that from kind of a hacker perspective on it. That's about it.
We kind of got fed up with a lot of the podcast shows that are out there that are like, okay, I had this for breakfast, and the other day we went to Best Buy, and my dog's kind of funny looking, and yada, yada, yada. And we said, we ought to make a show that's just like 5-10 minutes long and just has one simple topic, or maybe complicated topic, one central theme, and someone just talks about it. And that's what we do.
Now, it's funny because when you bring that up, you're actually mentioning some of the classic podcast/hacker show. What would be the best word for it? The stereotypical ones. It's kind of funny that people would think that this particular subgenre, which is relatively new, probably only like 5 or 6 years of this particular brand, already has its own standards, its own stereotypes, and its own problems, so that you end up with a show in which the person first apologizes for the show not being on for a long time and then starts to argue about what he read on Slashdot today a lot, and then says, I just bought this item. It was really good. So, are there ways that you find that you try to break out of these? Because certainly you listen to each other's shows and you listen to other shows that aren't made by the people in here. And so, are there any tricks or ideas that you come up with in your shows to break out of the mold, as it were?
Yeah. I don't know how things are where you work, but every place I've worked, it's always been that the IT office, where the network administrator or the hardware guys hang out, is sort of a place where people congregate to find out about computer news and computer knowledge, because people are always coming in saying, my computer's broken, or this is happening on my computer at home. And that's sort of an interesting, unique dynamic to have, the technical and the business people mixing and, talking about this. And that's sort of the model that we've done for our show, is to try to emulate that IT office. And try to have a conversation that's sort of like what you would have in that kind of office, and try to bring the technical information to a wider audience.
Was that it?
Well, actually,
That was stunning.
Lowtek forgot the question.
Okay.
But so just what we do to keep it different, how I try to do my school. I enjoy trying to emulate things that I've enjoyed, and also when you're watching all those audio shows, or listening to audio shows, all the things that you're like, man, I wish they would do that. Why don't they do this? And especially things that when I was a little kid and wish, man, if I ruled the world, I would do it like this. I kind of bring that into my audio show as well.
Actually, after something becomes cool, especially when computers suddenly became cool and being a geek or a hacker suddenly became in the spotlight, then suddenly you got the birth of the digital runway. So now everybody has sparkly new pieces of technology and they're showing it off. And it becomes more of a social symbol or a status symbol than a useful piece of tech that you like because it does something cool or it means something to you. So that's basically what we try to bleed through is, just good old-fashioned exploration of the world around you, whether it be through technical means or just all around. We try to break, the very shallow, paper-thin facade that is pop technology anymore. And we try to just, be real about everything.
Not to talk about my show personally, because I think it just kind of fits the mold of basically every hacker radio show you would listen to. But
are you proudly declaring you're being part of the average?
Yeah, I can't deny it.
Excellent. Embrace the mediocrity.
Yeah, but actually, Lowtek's show Ninja Night School, what really it's one of my favorite shows to listen to, simply because of it's not just like here's this, we're going to talk about this, and that's just all it's going to be. He puts a lot of actual plot and acts in his show, and has storylines that go in and continue throughout episodes and interesting things like that, which I think is really unique. In I've never heard a show that has stuff like that in this kind of genre. But
Okay, well then let's break your skulls open. Certainly in the amount of time that you guys have been doing shows, I know some of you have been doing them for years, some of them less for a few years. Is there some undiscussed fact that you learned doing this? And by that I mean a hint, a way you do a show, a way you approach a show, a way that you get around a problem. Is there something that you, as a hint, if you had to say to somebody who was interested in doing a show of their own, that they're not going to discover till 5-10 shows down the line, that you'd rather they know now and save themselves a lot of pain?
Make sure you don't encode your shows in really, really, really high files.
Make sure you don't encode your shows in really, really high files.
Yes.
Always trust your beautiful microphone thing. There you go.
Yes. The first 5 or 6 episodes of Belcore Radio, that was the first time I'd ever touched an audio editing program. And we released them, and they were 75 megabytes for an hour-long show, which I think now we get them down to 12. So
that just made me feel like they were classics.
Yeah. It took you a long time to download them, so they're good.
I was getting the Pioneer Gold version of your show. Tap Boy.
Well, there's lots of things to tell people. The first thing is most people are only going to do a show less than 10 episodes. And a lot of people will go really gung-ho. They'll do one. They'll be like, this is awesome. The next one's going to be so much better. I'm going to buy a website. I'm going to pay for hosting. And then 7 shows into it, they're like, this is so much work to try to do this once a week or once a month or get guests on my show. And they just give up and find something much more productive to do than this mess. And we started a little website, it's podcastincubator.com. I don't even know. And we give free hosting to people who want to start stuff. And that will kind of lessen the blow when you want to quit, so you don't have all this money invested in things. We've had one guy that got past 10 so far, and that's Lowtek. Yay! And then how many people have not made it? They've just quit? Is it 4, 5, 6? Yeah.
Don't say they quit. Say they completed below expectations.
They completed below expectations. This real smart guy I was talking to one day told me he had a cool idea, and I've been passing this idea to other people, and there's a guy in the audience over there I passed it to. And he said that do a season. Don't the way it's been done is they do a season, and it's a year. And what Mr. Jason Scott said was do a season which is 10 episodes, and they all tie into each other. And after you record all 10 of them, then you start releasing them once a month or once a week or however you want. And during that time, you can not have to do it and think about your next show, so there's more thought put into each show. And then the next season comes around whenever you want it to do, and people aren't going to be, forgetting about your show because you're doing it, one day, and then the next day, and then a week later, and then a month and a half later, and then the next day. And that's really, really annoying to not have a normal release schedule. But that's the worst part of the whole thing. Our Twat radio show is done by, it's a make off of the name Twit, which is the Leo Laporte famous guy podcast. And Mr. Dossman actually came up with that name. Hey! But we have multiple hosts that do it, so I don't have to do it every day. In fact, I rarely do one. And we're trying to get so many hosts that you only have to do one every 2 months, and which kind of takes down on the drudgery of it, and they only has to be 5 minutes. So sometime during that 2 months, you're going to say, hey, this is cool, something you learn or something you play with, and then you can do your show. It doesn't have to be about, this is how you secure a Linux box. It can be about all kinds of things. One guy did one on the thought process of something, of designing, or helping design what was it, Zigman throw-in? Some kind of launcher. A softball launcher, and like the thought process behind it, which is really interesting. And we have a guy that's in high school that releases them every day, because he's the only person that goes home at night to where his parents live and has time to get on the computer for a few minutes and update the site, so that most every day there's a new show out, and it's about the same time every day.
Yeah, I was really stunned. At one point, I was asked to be interviewed for a show, and I said, that's fine. And I was having the interview occur over Skype, which was already pretty interesting. I know that one person was in Pennsylvania, I think one was in DC. At some point while we were setting up, one of the kids' moms yelled at him because he wasn't doing his bar mitzvah training. And he convinced mom that he could wait an hour, finish this radio program he was doing, and then start on it. And I was like, so how old are you? Like, one was 12, one was 14, and they were interviewing me. I'm in my 30s. And so they were, whereas most kids would be quite happy about the fact that they were able to press play and record on something and yell into it for a while, they were quite happy to be doing this interview with a website owner across the country using Skype. So there was this sense of youth that's a little unusual, unsettling. Now, I don't know the variance in your ages. We'll just do this very quickly. I don't think any of you in your teens anymore, right? Okay, yeah, you're safe from Droops. Anybody in the 20s? No, you're in your 20s.
Tony Boy's in his teens.
Yeah.
Oh, you are in your teens. Okay.
You're not
19.
safe.
Not safe. Totally not safe. Lock your door. And then 20s? We have 20s? All right. And 30s? Yeah. So we have this actual... Interesting. So, well, interesting to me. So, do you think it's a product of the young, of youth, of time, or is it a case of somebody getting... Do you perceive it as more of, this is a brand new thing and I want to be a part of it, or do you case of, after watching this for all this time, I want to jump in?
I don't know. I almost would think it would be more of with the younger crowd, that when you're young, you've got all kinds of stuff to say and you want to say it. So that might be part of it.
I think that I'm kind of the opposite way of him. I think because there really is, an even more varying age than what we have here. There's people in their, middle, like going through their midlife crisis and doing shows like, I think I've heard shows, hacker media shows that are people's, up to 45 or above. I'm not totally sure, but I think that it really is more just it's this kind of this cool new thing to do. As hackers, we like to share things, and this is a really easy way to share things because, like in a text file, you can't, put emphasis on specific things. But speaking, you can make sure that people get the point across that you're not saying something another, and they're taking it another way, because you can let them know by the tone of your voice. But
Okay. Anybody else?
I think a lot of it is people genuinely wanting to voice what I feel, what I think, what I want to do. But then, as I just brought up, I think it's still relatively new to the point where people are wearing their digital media loafers on the digital runway, and they're just kind of showing them off. So I think what we're going to get as the strainer of time wears on, we'll still have, we'll have more of the genuine stuff. But right now, I still think that we're kind of in the mix for everybody. Oh, this new thing. Oh, they're just kind of showing off right now.
So you're saying we're in a show boom that may end up in a show shakeout? That's your opinion? Yes. Okay.
Well, I think as far as the whole show boom goes, it's the people who want to do it will continue doing it, while the people who are just in it for just because they know they can, and just to
the glory and the
just
money?
to get it out there, they, as we were saying before, only do like 4 or 5 episodes, 2, 3. But once you get past maybe about 15, 20 or so, it seems like it's going to continue on, especially if it's a weekly thing. Actually, advice I would give if you're interested in starting is to do a few, maybe about anywhere from 5 to like around 5 episodes before releasing any, which was an idea Droops was talking about. And maybe not even release those episodes because maybe you don't have a format down for your show yet, and then continue on at whatever episode and call that episode 1.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Because the first few episodes of everyone's show are I'm learning how to use Audacity, and the sound quality is horrible, and they haven't figured everything out. So that's actually a really good idea.
As I recall, Droops, actually, one of your first shows was like 90 minutes, something like that. There was something where you achieved a show that was like a mini series. I think it's the one that you got drunk in the middle of.
Yeah, there were. I used to do a different show that was supposed to be the Droops radio show, and that was really a dumb idea, like this bad name. So we came up with this name called NOTACON, and I couldn't do the show one day, and I asked this guy to help out, and then he and I started doing the show, and we had really good little banter between us, and then we just started getting drunk a lot. And then I had a roommate last summer, and he and I that's what we did. And it was very bad. I don't recommend anyone listening to it.
I loved listening to it. I transcribed them.
Yeah.
They were fantastic because you actually took a whiz break during it outside in your front yard. And it really brought in that sense of community. Because you were sharing your whiz with us and with apparently all of your neighbors.
Anyway, another piece of advice I just remembered recently is, since I do this out of a studio, I have somewhat pro gear. And when an XLR cable does not work, cut it and throw it out. That's what I learned, and it hasn't failed me yet.
This cable cup works very well for figuring out what's wrong with XLR cables. It costs about $20.
That's Cable Cup, $20.
I have to agree that one good way to keep your podcast going is to use alcohol, because if that's the day when you sit down and have a couple beers, that really helps you stay with it. One other thing that we do is we have about 12 or 13 people involved in our podcast, and we have one guy that's the MC. He's there every week, but then the cast is pretty much rotating. So if you don't feel like doing it one week, you just blow it off, and it doesn't matter because there's a whole roster of people that are available. I think it's also more interesting for the listeners because it's usually not the same combination of people more than once in a row.
Right. Now your show is actually the only one on the panel that's actually been broadcast.
Yes, that's correct. We had a little bit of a unique beginning to our show. We started as a radio program, and we just patched an AM radio into IceCast server, and we streamed it on the internet in real time as we did the broadcast, and then we would archive that as an MP3 and put it on the website, and then we figured that we were just an RSS file away from a podcast, so we go ahead and do that. And over time, we just decided to drop the conventional broadcast and do the podcast only.
Did you find any kind of marked difference between working for a broadcast environment versus your podcast? Did your show change significantly?
Not at first. It took a while for us to, get the hang of doing it in a different format, but it's certainly more laid back. We don't have time constraints. We don't have to take breaks at certain points in the show. On the air, we took a lot of calls from people calling in, and that was obviously a lot harder with the podcast. So that part of it went away. But to compensate for that, we came up with sort of weekly features that we wanted to do. And so we have like this menu of weekly features, and just like the contributors, those vary from week to week too. Maybe we have 15 different topics that we'll talk about, but we'll only get to 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a given podcast.
So, one of the things that one would think would be markedly different between broadcasting and with that would be the discipline. Do you miss the discipline?
Maybe the listeners do. But it's easier for us. It's more laid back to not have any of those constraints.
So do you guys think that the show is done for yourself or for your listeners?
like I said before, we try to reproduce that atmosphere of the IT office in a medium-sized organization. So we really do it for ourselves and for the people that we think would enjoy that type of thing. And, the listeners just, we get feedback from the listeners. They say they enjoy it. So I don't know if it's a self-selection problem, but the audience we have seems to enjoy the format we have.
How about the rest of you? Do you think that you primarily do it for yourself to give yourself a voice, or do you do it because you think that there's this gap that these people that you haven't met need to have from you?
I think, and kind of in the same way as him, I think it's a little bit of both, like a combination work. I mean, I do it for myself because it's a lot of fun, and I like to, be able to just talk about whatever the hell I want, and you just really do whatever I want, and people will possibly enjoy it. But I also think that it is kind of, I started my show because I felt that it was important to talk about things like I said, like about phone freaking, because there really wasn't, when I started the show, there wasn't a big outlet for this kind of information, and I found out that was because there's not really a lot of news that happens like weekly in this kind of field, and so it's kind of gone down from the telecommunications talk from there. But I think it is kind of both for me to have some fun hobby to do, and then for other people to be able to enjoy. But
anybody else have an answer different than that?
My show is done totally for me. I do it because I enjoy it like almost nothing else. And the day that changes will be the day that I no longer do any more Ninja Night School. I enjoy just running around the house, driving around in my car. I'm making all kinds of noises. I'm talking to myself. I have a blast. I live in my own little world. So I figured, why not record a little bit, and then I can actually layer in extra sound effects, and I can, increase the, spontaneous and wonderfulness of my own little world. And I can share my little world with you guys. And the fact that there's actually people out there who download it and enjoy it, that blows my mind and humbles me more than anything else. So, it's really just for me, and I enjoy doing it because it's fun. So, and the fact that people download it and enjoy it is just, that's the cherry on top.
Well, I kind of had that whole speech under the table here, and he just read it and took it. Actually, if anybody's seen the Hodgepodge that is our show, it's anything and everything that interests us, that we have a lot of fun to do. That we have a lot of fun doing. The spontaneity of it is pretty much just how our everyday life is, what we do, what we take apart, what we build. And the fact that, there's other people that are totally into it, actually take the time to respond to us and keep egging us on, really adds a little extra something to the show. But we're not a catering service, so if there's something that people want to see, well, then do your own thing.
Well, let's see. On my show, it's pretty much for us, but it's also to get ourselves in a position where we have to converse about the certain topics, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not just me; it's also Silent Slade, Morbid, D-Mad, and we also have a couple other people that we could call. And it's really, for us, about the sharing of information, and we put it out there because we feel others may be interested, and it turns out that they are.
Yeah, don't smile. When RFA ended, there was a gap, and I was going back listening to a bunch of them, missing the days of the show, and I said, well, I could do this. And I started it just to see if I could, and it became immense fun, and we continued the show until it was no longer fun, and then we stopped. And with the Twat radio, Dossman and I were on the phone or somewhere, we were talking about it, and we were talking, wouldn't it be cool if we just had a show that didn't have all this crap, and it came out every day and we learned something new? And we started it because we didn't figure who else would. And the first few shows were us, and I intentionally recorded them horribly, so it was very crappy, and the kids at Dig were making fun of us because of our sound quality. And I have some good stuff. I can make it sound really nice, but we didn't want it to sound too good because then people would be more concerned about the audio quality and saying, oh, I couldn't do that, than the content of the shows. And that's our goal. And it's mainly so I can get a show every day and learn something without actually having to do anything. But anyway, it works out.
And you've learned quite a bit.
And I have.
Okay, we're going to open up the questions from the audience because, obviously we want to know where you want us to go with this. Does anyone have any questions for the panel or for me? Yes, sir.
So the name Twat.
The name Twat.
I understand the play on Twit. Do you have if you experienced any resistance, problems, criticism, that kind of thing. Other than I noticed, because I actually just got it through iTunes Thursday, and it's T star T, right? They take out the W and the A from it.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
That's pretty hardcore. Steve Jobs is scared of you. We will not speak of it. It does stand for talk with a techie.
Right. There you go.
Or does it? Mainly, we were just trying to come up with something that was like theirs to kind of poke fun at them, and that was the only word we could come up with.
Well, I figured that, but I was
Yeah.
wondering what kind of...
Well,
Besides, of course, the crackdown by Apple.
Well, we get a lot of crap other than the Apple muscling around. People are all the time complaining about it. The audio quality is crappy. You don't have Kevin Rose on the show. Why would you call it this? You're just using twit to make yourself famous. Do you think people are going to mistype twit and get twat? It's like, no. And I've actually gone through the internet and searched for this crap. And
By the third or the fourth show, they usually catch on.
Yeah. If you're going to be complaining about stuff like that, we probably don't want you to listen to the show, because I don't like whiny people, and I don't want to have to deal with them. What's up? Are you getting into this?
Yeah. What's
that?
I know there's a lot of women who would slap me if I said that.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, that would actually be a function of the maleness of a lot of the hacker shows. There are not many female hacker radio show producers. It just works out that way. And I'm sure if there were more, they would be listened to.
One of the things that kind of struck me as I was listening to Twit was the way Leo Laporte and some of those folks enjoy getting together and talking about stuff. And I think Droops had kind of the same idea at the same time. Was it'd be nice to get some of us conversing on a regular basis, talking about some technology and stuff, and having a regular program like, sort of the well-organized folks do on that side of the house. And,
Well, they pay their people to be on the show,
Oh, really?
or they buy them equipment, things like that.
Okay.
There's monetary reasons for them to get people.
I wasn't aware of any of that.
Yeah.
So,
The
okay.
money.
I've noticed they've gone, they've kind of gone sellout too, because the last Security Now had tons of ads, sponsored by. And
Well, I don't think any of us.
Right around the corner before it does that.
That is worth noting. I mean, how many of you,
What's
if
that?
somebody came to you and said, hey, we're doing
Oh, I'm
guerrilla
sorry.
marketing, how about if you guys give us some ads? You don't mind that, do you? What would be your response? I'll hit all of you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Say that you get this say NVIDIA goes to you and says, look, we just want this 15-second spot before your show. We'll even record it professionally for you and give it to you with your show name.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't see a point of it, I mean, I think that it's like, I guess if you want to make money, that's cool, but generally speaking, hacker radio stuff, it's just like, hey, we went and got, Audacity, which is this free audio editing program, and we're just going to kind of make this thing and give it away. But I actually wanted to respond to his question a little bit about whether there's been negative aspects from the name twat. We actually have one of the guys who helps us run the whole thing. He actually put on his resume or an application for getting a job at an ISP that he's an engineer on twat. And they were like, okay, so what's that? And it actually helped him get a job. So
We usually use TWA Tech.
yeah.
There you go.
Which
Yeah, there you go.
Transwestern
There's your-
Airline.
Yeah, Twat Tech.
Well, let's see. If NVIDIA asked me to sponsor maybe a 15-second thing on my show, I would have to say that maybe if you put accelerated graphic drivers on so I could run them on Linux on my Apple PowerBook, maybe I'll mention you for 5 seconds. I mean, I wouldn't do anything. It would just be part of news that, hey, they came out with this finally. That's it.
The second you have advertisers, you're going to have to do what they say. And then when you're doing what someone that's paying you says, it's a job. And this isn't a job.
Yeah,
It's an adventure.
I come to the same conclusion that once it becomes my job, it is no longer my passion. Therefore, I cannot put my heart into it, and I'm not going to make anything creative anymore. But on the other coin, if the residuals are going to enable me to quit my job, ride a Shetland pony, and eat Jell-O all day long, then by golly, I'm going to do it, and I'm sorry.
Never discount the power of the pony jello.
I most likely, the money would be extra coming from whoever the sponsor may be. So if I'm suddenly not doing what they want me to, then okay, stop paying me. I don't care.
Yeah.
Fired at a job. They don't like it. Tough shit. Have
I was actually rather surprised that Duel didn't get picked up by G4 or something, because he certainly had the talent. Now, it's worth noting the Digital Dog Pound, because what you have there is this site, Digital Dog Pound, which is a forum and a wiki and a number of other resources that people started to work together on. And I know that when I observed it, that a lot of times people would be driven into doing shows because others would make comments and then put them up and say, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And well, it has its ups and downs, its politics and its wonder, but did you find a community? Did the community have any peace with you doing this, or was it just pure listening to the shows and then you found the community?
Mine was purely, I listened to a lot of stuff and I was like, I like this, but then most of the shows I really enjoyed just kind of went away for one reason or another. And so it was just kind of like, I need something that will help me fill this gap. So I need to make something, and it doubles up because I can talk about whatever interests me as opposed to what interests just those people. So I found it to be just kind of like, I didn't know about this whole underground hacker radio community or whatever until I actually kind of got into the doing my own show and stuff.
Mine was definitely community-based. I enjoy all the shows that are out there. I am an idiot, so all my knowledge basically comes from what everybody else decides to put together and say, hey, look what I can do. This is how you can do it too. And that moves me really more than most things should. I really get touched by that, probably more than I should. But that's definitely what drove me. I wanted to give back to the community. And since I'm an idiot and I have no technical knowledge, I figured that there's a lack of a lot of quote-unquote entertainment out there in the podcast. Back in the 30s and 40s, there was a lot of radio dramas. Radio dramas everywhere. And so many sound effects. And, you close your eyes and you sit back, you were there. You're just a shadow. What lurks in the heart of men, you were sucked in. And there's none of that out there. So I'm kind of slowly incorporating that into my show as I get better and better at it. And right now my show is kind of like Captain Kangaroo, Mr. Rogers, with a little hacker mixed in and some ninjas. So it's definitely very humorous. It's all about fun and mildly serious, but always lighthearted. So.
Nothing is leader than Mr. Rogers and ninjas. I just wanted to point that out. That's what makes his show great.
My trolley is now controlled by Wi-Fi.
Well, actually, when he was talking about 30s and 40s radio serials, I was really thinking about The Shadow. I wasn't thinking about like the little Orphan Annie serial or anything. Sorry, nobody listens to radio serials anymore. Never mind. You keep raising your hand. What would you like to ask?
I had kind of two questions. I mean, you guys both said, you all said that you didn't really want to work, for money. You enjoyed it, but I mean, at the same time, the video wanted to pay you, say that your show was sponsored by them, but they would pay you or buy you equipment or something. But at the same time, I mean, it would just be for like a limited number of episodes, and they in no way, enforced, what they wouldn't stop you, and if they tried to, then you could just.
All that I personally would offer them is a very. I'd offer them an in-depth look at their product. If they're going to give me money, they're going to give me product, and I'm going to review it and show people something cool that they can do with it. Now, if it's a crappy product, they're going to get a crappy review. They're not buying my, they're not buying my opinion in any sort.
At the same time, I mean, it's not your job.
I'll look at it as a contract basis. They're basically I would be contracting my services to them, but so basically I wouldn't be hired under them. If I really didn't like it that much, then they can go somewhere else. But if they would like to be shown on the show and really have their product shown in a realistic aspect, if they'd really want me to show everybody exactly what they have to offer, then that's then that's what they'll get. And if they don't, then they can walk and pitch it to another fanboy that'll sing their praises for some cash.
I think my answer might be a little different because of all of us up here. I think our show's probably the one that would take the money. We do it for fun. We do it anyway. We've been doing it for over a year without any sponsorship. But if somebody wanted to give us money for a spot on the show, I think we'd take it because that's a nice bonus. It'll pay for beer or whatever during the show. I think a more interesting question is not so much NVIDIA or someone else like that, but what if it was Sony around the time they came out with their rootkit? Probably all of us talked about that on our shows and had our harsh opinions of Sony. What would you do if someone like that wanted to give you money, and would that impact your coverage? I think it has to, because if they're giving you money, then they're going to expect you not to say bad things about them. So that would be a tougher call.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the same. I don't want to take money and be contracted by someone if I'm going to find out later that their product sucks, or that just because that would keep me from being able to honestly say what I feel about a specific product. And I mean, in my opinion, like if you're getting paid to do your hobby, that is when you've sold out, in my opinion. I mean, no offense to but I mean, yeah.
Oh, the seating's great.
Yeah. So Rick is a sellout, and everyone must stone him later.
That's fantastic. The idea is to engage and embrace your audience and make them feel at one with your...
Except that guy.
Except for that guy. I get it. So the key is really to build and embrace the audience by attacking another member of the audience. All right, I'm just learning the Pony Boy way in 5 steps. Step 1, find an enemy. Go ahead. Was there any? Okay, yep, we're all on the up, down, sell out. Excellent. Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience? Don't want anyone to feel locked up. Oh, look at them all. See, we've stunned them into happiness. The pure wattage of hacker media power up here is very interesting. By the way, I can say that as somebody who has been approached by advertisers for textfiles.com and a couple of my other sites, I generally unequivocally tell them to fuck off directly, usually with a huge stream of profanity and linking them to an essay about why I don't take advertising. Half the time they don't respond. The other half, they proceed to explain to me why I'm an idiot. So, I mean, I've seen that realistically happen, and a lot of that, from my point of view, is just simply from the point of view of that, first of all, in my case, it opens up liability, because I am in some way selling the products, none of which are really mine. And the other reason is that I find more often than not, it's simply because they haven't found the methamphetamine ingredients. So once they do, they're going to be very angry at me, and they're going to tell me that I wasn't what I claimed I was by being me, and not do it. And like I said, more than once I've been lectured to by somebody who makes money saying, dude, welcome to the real world where we do this. In fact, believe it or not, I was actually pursued by someone about the BBS documentary about dramatizing it and selling a script based on it. Not unlike the Dogtown Z-Boys movie that came out that was a documentary and then became Boys of Dogtown. Same idea. Boy, would that have been a bad movie. But I also told him very bad things, and he was very angry. So anyway, that kind of actual thing, because a lot of times people hear this stuff and they'll say, well, these are relatively small audiences, who would go for them? And the answer is, you'd be surprised, especially in today's fragmented world, that yesterday's hacker media show is tomorrow's possible new slot on G4. And that in a move of desperation, they'll say, let's do Up All Night. Let's try to do something like the Adult Swim guys. Let's just get anyone we can to go into the 2 to 5 slot hour and take a risk. And so these questions actually do come up to you over time. Anyway. All right, so there's no questions there. Now, I know you had one. Oh, look, Bumpies. Okay, yep, what?
What do you think is the most difficult challenge for running your own show? You've been obviously all doing it for a long time, and you must have hit that moment where you were considering whether you can continue on or not.
Most difficult challenge of your show?
For me personally, the most difficult challenge initially was hosting, finding a place to put the show. Because we started out, a friend of mine was like, yeah, sure, I'll host your show on my server or whatever, not expecting anything big to come out of it. And like the first few episodes, we got a lot of downloads and ran his bandwidth out. And so he was like, yeah, I know I told you I'd host it for free and everything, but I'm not, and you have to pay me now. I'm not going to host it, and you have to pay me for everything you just used up.
Yeah. Let's see also the 75 meg per show download.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, but I guess if you catch on to the smaller file size, it won't be such an issue. But finding, I mean, I still haven't paid him for it, but yeah, I still talk to him. So,
I know my biggest challenge is just the real world, seeing as how most of the time I spend in my own personal world, which is much funner than y'all's. Just trying to find the time between work and all the other stuff that you've got to do to actually live and continue living, finding time to sit down and do all the silly stuff that I do.
Well, actually, one of the things that I had to struggle with, which I still contend with, is stage fright, camera shy, things of that nature. So actually, if you watch the progression of our shows, I more and more warm up to the camera. So actually, it's been very therapeutic for me, and I've had a pretty good time. Also, negative press is not good for anybody, even if you're doing a project for yourself. And we got a little bit of that. And you know what? A very drunken uncle of mine from southern Indiana, wearing a mullet, gave me a really good bit of advice, and that's hold your head up and keep on trucking. And it holds true, actually, sadly. And then we sang Billy Ray Cyrus.
That's the kind of knowledge that you can take with you through your whole life. Everything works that way.
Anyway, let's see. The biggest challenge for my show had to be it involved hosting, as Ponyboy mentioned, but it also involved DOS and a $2,600 bill. Something like that, which was never paid, and I never heard much more from it, so it was probably the hosting company was probably a scam. Don't use Kanaka.
It's really hard to get somebody together, like we were talking earlier, unless you're paying them. Be here at this time, and it's really hard to get 2 or 3 people, or some people try like 5 people, and that doesn't work out at all. And involving that, the seriously hard thing we've had is content, is you want to have something that's interesting. And the number of listeners matters to a lot of things, but it really doesn't at all if you're just doing a bad job. So content is the number one thing we don't have trouble per se, but just what we work with.
I would have to agree with Droops because,
the first person ever, that man right there. If we have any tickets, give it to him, please.
One agreement. Will someone second the motion?
Well, I've noticed shows like Off the Hook has just turned into psychobabble ranting about politics, and
yeah.
We want content. We don't want just bullshit. People screwing around and talking about politics all day long.
And if you want that, you know where to go get it.
So you're saying Off the Hook has lost a fan?
Politics is good, and it's part of the hacker community, but
kind of on the same line of thought. Personal challenge, I think, for myself and Zach is the show, doing video, takes so much time and effort that I found the last 2 years I've done a lot fewer personal projects like we've had on the show, just because it takes so much effort to do the show. And that's one thing that's a challenge. And the last 3 or 4 months has been good for the project we've been working on that's upstairs, just to focus on having some fun doing a cool project rather than trying to specifically film it and create it as content. So I think you kind of have to, for me, I have to go back and forth and do some fun projects and stuff, and then bring it back to film it or something. Do you have a question?
Let's just get him one.
That was just actually my question leads into, would any of you other of you consider doing video?
Yeah, I've done some.
Yeah.
Yep.
I plan on recording some and submitting some to Hack TV Underground. So,
me and a few of my friends at a local 2600-ish type meeting that I run decided one day that that's what we're gonna do, and we were gonna make the best damn internet TV show there was. And that was about a year ago, and we've done about as far as drawing a storyboard for it. Because, I mean, it's really not for everyone. I mean, it took me forever to master audio editing, to get good at it at least. And I don't know, video is just that, it's an alien technology to me. I have a hard enough time, making sure I have the right, codec and downloaded and installed or whatever to watch some videos online or whatever. But I don't know. That's a technology that I don't really see myself being able to get into decently, at least. But
Okay, you two are the last question. Go ahead.
Okay, I have kind of a question wrapped in a comment. Like you guys
In an enigma?
G4 TV, like as in the commercial known media center for all these technological shows, and you're all on Hacker Media, pretty much.
Yeah, hackermedia.org is the website to find out everything.
And I know that Droops has already started SWAT, which is randomly having different hosts do the same thing. Have you ever considered taking all the different members from a Hacker Media thing and kind of creating your own sub-network, or do you think Hacker Media already is an internet version of G4?
Oh.
that's you, buddy.
Yeah, I have to really point out that Droops has been quite, you basically have two people who have been doing a lot of spearheading organization. And that would be Stank Dog, the Digital Dog Pound, and Droops, who's here. Both of these people turned around and, while they did their shows, also turned around and started to try to build some level of step ladder and say, okay, well, here's a bunch of slots we need you to fill. Put a show here, put something here, tell me something here. And if you can't do your own show, do your own show with me. Go with here, and let's add this thing, and what else do we need, and so on. And that's not in any culture, there's only a few people who actually ask that question. A lot of guys want to drive the cars, not many want to figure out, hey, maybe someone should keep a list of where we get the parts. They want to do their little thing, but they don't want to say, okay, how do we work on it? So Droops has definitely done that, and Stank Dog has done that. Anyway.
Shoot, I forgot what we're talking about.
I do that. It's
Yeah.
It's the Jason Scott memory ray.
Ooh. I don't think we have a broad enough audience to do that and have our own little media thing like that. I really consider Hacker Media to be the central location, because everyone that I find that's doing a show, and I say, hey, here's an account on Hacker Media, post your stuff so we have some content. And everyone's like, wow, oh yeah, heck yeah, we'll put it on there. And hopefully we give them a bunch of hits. We've had 20,000 hits on the site in the last 5 days. But that's with the RSS feed every time someone boots up their computer or iTunes wants to check or some website wants to hit it. So it's really, really hard with our crappy one-in-one stuff. Don't use one-in-one. To determine what those are all for. I mean, it's a good number, but we don't know what it is. And Infonomicon Radio stopped a year ago. I don't know, maybe half a year ago. And we still get 2,000 hits on the RSS feed every week. And that's just people have looked at it and said, oh, this is cool, and never removed it. And every time their podcaster client runs, we still get hits. So it's really hard to judge what we have. So we have a really smaller audience than 20,000 hits in the last 5 days.
We also had that great experiment known as Freak Factor. It's one of the finest ideas I've ever heard of.
Oh, yeah.
How many people here, who here is familiar with Freak Factor? 1, 2, 3. Freak Factor was an experiment. Now, it was a very interesting experiment. The idea was, let's set up a conference with absolutely no moderation. Let's record it for 2 hours. Surely something good must come of this.
This Freak Factor is, and I was actually hoping this would get brought up, but because I love to talk about Freak Factor. It was the best and worst idea ever. Freak Factor was really cool because it was let's get all these people, and we're running out of time, so I'll make it quick.
No, she was saying, you suck.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it was basically, you have all these people, and they're just talking about anything they want. Just completely free-flowing thought. There's no kind of mediation behind it, no kind of specific thing. It's just whatever people are interested in right then and there.
Calling Walmart.
Yeah, but it turned into, the first episode, they were kind of well, we don't know what to do, so let's make prank phone calls. And so then every episode, I think they only did 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And they were each actually about 4 hours long. Each episode ended up being about 2 hours of them trying to get on various Walmart PA systems. And once they did, just saying stupid shit like dog balls. And I mean, it was.
But it's important to note. I mean, within a very short time, you instituted moderation. You had to kind of sign up to get into the pool and still be an idiot, and so on. And it's like I agree with you, best and worst, because what came out of there was totally magical, or a horror show.
Yeah, I really think that's going to be what the next. Like, there's going to be a lot more shows like that coming. I mean, there's going to be a lot more shows where it's just like, let's get a bunch of people on here. And there actually are shows that are coming out lately. I've noticed that they're just like, let's get a bunch of people together and just talk. We'll just get together and right then we'll just talk about whatever. So, but I think.
Yeah. To me, Freak Factor was a lot more interesting because it was never planned to be recorded. They were just going to stream it live as it happened. It was going to be a reality show and just throw people in there, let them do whatever the hell they wanted. And of course, people record phone conferences. And then they were trading them around. So they said, okay, let's write a little script that records it. And they recorded it. And everyone's like, this is horrible. We need to fix it. So they said, all right, let's put moderation in. And every week, they did something different on the show, just like behind the scenes to make things different. They tried to get some people to, just random people, okay, you're in charge today. You can kick people off if they're annoying as hell. And that doesn't really work. And it was just interesting to watch them change it to try to. You can't control a phone conference, and especially with people calling in, they just want to prank call Walmart. You can't stop that, and it's just really fun watching all that as it took place.
Well, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah,
just that,
and it was hyped as the first internet reality show.
So if your one big takeaway, your one big takeaway, Hacker Media fucks with Walmart. Now let me just get these guys. Okay, just give them your URL.
Dial-a-dork.com, that's hyphenated dial-a-dork.com.
And yours?
Bellcoreradio.net.
Okay, and yours?
NinjaNightSchool.com.
And yours?
PacketSniffers.org, or for some laughs, Kitchen.org. Oh, yeah, Kitchen.org, KYCHN.
Well, that's just completely intuitive. Go ahead.
BaseNetRadio.net.
Okay.
HackerMedia.net.
Okay, and?
TwatTech.org.
Woo! Okay, so thank you very much for your time tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks to our panelists. So, in this area we're having right here, it's going to be a party like it's going out of style with open decks. Then
hey, if anyone wants to be a host on Twat, hey, contact me and Ponyboy.
Awesome. Right in there. So once again, we're going to have open decks here. We're going to have a couple stuff here. The night's not over. Talks are over, but the fun is still going on.
Hey, shut up for a second, Jason. I just wanted, before everybody goes, over there at NOTACON radio station, which we probably could have talked about during this thing, we're actually going to be recording an episode of Bellcore Radio that kind of became our lost episode. It disappeared one day. And just so if anybody wants to get on, just come over there. We've got like 4 mics that we're just kind of pointing at random areas. So if you want to be on a cool show, or hopefully this one will be a cool show, just come over and we'll get you on. You can talk about whatever the hell you want.